Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a week of 9/11 as we remember everything that happened over the past week, over 20 years ago. It's a saddening time, but we digress. We focus on college football today. We salute those who were involved, and we salute those, and they will be forever in our hearts. To those who were injured, to the families of those who were injured, our hearts and our prayers and our condolences go to you. And by the way, this is a college football show, so we are going to get along and start talking about that. But what I wanted to talk about first, what I wanted to address was the lack of how do I describe this? The lack of heart that this Auburn team seems to have at the moment. Something that I really wanted to point out was the poor quarterback play. First off, Peyton Thorne is absolutely terrible at the game of football. And I hate to say that. I hate to even go there. But it has come to that point, ladies and gentlemen. And at some point, you have to say, or excuse me, you have to step back and say, hey, you know what? This is not going to work. And I think that's exactly what the big man, Hugh Freeze, has done. I don't think that there will be a quarterback change this week, maybe even possibly next week. But guess what? Come Oklahoma, there will be a new quarterback in Auburn, according to your source, Hayden Coker at HCS Media, also the Hayden Coker Show. But that's aside from the point. Guys, there was a lot to talk about this week, and something that struck my eye was Texas State. And Texas State is one of the better group of five teams in college football right now. You have quarterback Jordan McLeod, running back Ismail Mahdi. I think he is very, very good. And something about him is that he's shifty. He can run over guys. And Jordan McLeod, he can actually throw the ball. This is a really good quarterback for this Texas State team. Last year, he was at James Madison. Now he is at none other than the Texas State Bobcats. And he's going to be putting on a show tonight at 6:30. They host the Arizona State Sun Devils, who were a 1.5-point favorite as of yesterday. I believe it was a 1.5-point favorite earlier as well, but I'm not entirely sure. But that's the thing. I think that these group of five teams could make a strong case for that 12 team or that 12 seed in the college football playoff. We just have to see how that goes as we progress throughout the year. Now, you have teams like Northern Illinois who could make a case. You have teams like Liberty. You have teams like Tulane. Tulane just put up a really good fight against a really good Kansas State Wildcat team. So I'm not putting anything past these group of five teams. I just think it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to get in. They're going to make a case, of course, but with the schedule, these guys aren't playing many Power 5 conferences many Power 5 or Power 4 teams. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how that progresses as we go throughout the season. This is not going to be a 1 week hit or miss type of deal. This is like last week. Northern Illinois isn't going to get into the playoffs because they beat Notre Dame. Northern Illinois is going to get into the playoffs because of how the rest of their season after Notre Dame went. Obviously, they played a great game against Notre Dame. Let's see how the rest of the season goes. This is not a one-way street, okay? We aren't just talking about one simple game. We aren't just talking about one simple week, maybe even week two, maybe even 2 weeks. This is a season-long period that we're going to be discussing. So I'm really excited for that. I really wanted to touch on the group of five teams because I feel like we have a few of them that are really good and could contend. I mentioned those a little earlier. But Texas State is one of those teams, and I think they beat Arizona State tonight, and I think they proved that. And what's going to happen later on in the season, I think this is a really good Sun Belt Conference team. I really think that if there is a group of five team out there, it's going to be them to do it. If not them, then I think it's going to be Liberty. You can make a case for Tulane or Northern Illinois, depending on how their season goes out and how their season unfolds. But we'll talk about that a little bit later and see how that goes. But yeah, guys, it was a crazy week. We had Alabama playing. We had Alabama get a little scared happened just a few days ago. They played South Florida, a really close game going into the fourth quarter, and then South Florida ends up running away with it. And then you have the Auburn Tigers. The Auburn Tigers played the California Golden Bears, and the California Golden Bears absolutely rocked. They did. They went into Jordan-Hare Stadium, and they did what teams don't normally do, and they went in there and they showed their business. They showed who they were. I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought that there was absolutely no chance that the California Golden Bears would go into Jordan-Hare Stadium and do what they did to Auburn on Saturday afternoon. Well, Peyton Thorne threw 4 interceptions. Add another turnover, add another fumble to it. You have 5 total turnovers. You're not going to beat a team turning the ball over 5 times. It's just not going to happen. And something I thought that was really, really interesting about that game was how California played defensively, and their secondary was great. They did a really nice job against Peyton Thorne. Auburn's secondary, on the other hand, was absolutely pitiful. You had a guy in Fernando Mendoza go out there and absolutely make your team look ridiculous. And I thought it was pitiful. I really thought that they would do a little bit better of a job. They obviously did not. I think now I'm gonna repeat that one more time. I think they will make a quarterback change within the next few weeks because obviously Peyton Thorne is not the best option at the quarterback position. Hugh Freeze said it himself that Peyton Thorne is the best competitor in practice. Unfortunately, that is not translating into games, so something's got to change. Something will change in the future. He did not say that, but I do believe that something will change in the future. Now, I think the most important thing was that he said, and he pointed this out. He goes, "I think it's hard to not start the best and most competitive guy in practice week in and week out." He followed up to say, like I just said, if it's not translating to the game, then it's just not going to work out. And that's what, as Auburn fans, they want to see something different. You cannot just keep going onto the field, turning on your TV, going to the stadium every Saturday if you're a season ticket holder or watching from the TV every single Saturday and getting the same exact result. It's just not going to happen. It's just pitiful. It's like teams not showing up to practice every week and then going out there and expecting a different result. If that's going to be the case, then Auburn's in for a long season. I'm not sure they get the 6 wins if that's the case. We all thought this was an 8-win team at best, or 8-win team at least. Coming into the season, I thought at least, but for now, I'm not sure. What we saw on Saturday was a sheer definition of absolutely pitiful. It just was. So I'm not confident in this Auburn team. Until they show me otherwise, I'm not going to be confident. They have not shown me a reason to be confident, so I'm not going to be confident. You have a New Mexico team this week coming into Jordan-Hare Stadium. Now, thankfully, it's not New Mexico State. If you're an Auburn fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Thankfully, it's not them, but unfortunately for you, Diego Pavia is going to be playing the Auburn Tigers this year. And that's not good, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to go ahead and put that out there right now. So let me go ahead and make that clear. But, guys, like I said, it was a fantastic weekend of college football. We've had a few interesting happenings take place this week. Something interesting is the logos on the field. And I wanted to touch on this because I think it's very important for the game of college football. I think it's very important in sports in general and college sports especially. And we're going to get into that a little later. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about J&K Tire. J&K Tire, they offer tires that you can rotate your tires, go get your oil changed. They can work on your minor auto repairs, your struts, your shocks, your tire alignments, your brakes. It is extremely, extremely important that before you take any road trip out there, it is extremely important for you to go see J&K Tire in Steele, Alabama. You can call them at 256-570-0777. Welcome into the Hayden Coker Show, presented to you by Chick-fil-A in Pell City. Hope everybody is doing well. And we're just getting into it because we've got a lot to talk about. We mentioned a little bit earlier, we talked about the group of 5 teams, and then we talked about Auburn and their absolutely terrible showing this past weekend, and we talked about Alabama a little bit and their struggles early, and then they eventually pulled away in that game. We've got a lot to talk about, a lot of games to break down. There's some games that I think that a few of you are not necessarily paying attention to. Now, we can talk all we want to about this being a slow week in college football. Well, if you pay attention to the top 25, the AP top 25 that is, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we don't necessarily do that. We of course, we look at the ranking beside the team's name. What we also look at is the matchup in general. We have a few matchups that are not ranked in the AP Top 25 that I really want to talk about. One of those matchups being West Virginia versus Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh's backyard, this is the backyard brawl. I'm very stoked for this game. I don't know about you. It's going to happen at 2:30. It's going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I think that this Pittsburgh team is really, really proven, and I think they're going to show that this weekend. West Virginia is still on the rocks a little bit for me. I think that Eli Holstein, former Alabama quarterback, by the way, I think he's going to play really nice this weekend. He's really good as well. You've got to look at other guys too. I think that Pittsburgh is going to go in. They're going to do their job. They're going to execute, and they're going to win the game. And that's just that. You have Desmond Reed, running back for Pittsburgh, who I think is really good. He's been really nice this year. He's got 293 yards or 243 yards this year on and one touchdown as well. I think he's going to be really nice. He's got 34 carries for over 290 yards. That's 8.9 yards per carry, by the way. You don't have to do the quick math. I've got it for you. So I'm very excited for this game. Of course, I'm excited for West Virginia to see what they're going to be able to do. Garrett Green and C.J. Donaldson in that backfield. But, of course, I'm rolling with the Pittsburgh Panthers in this one. They were the Pitt Panthers, right? Yeah, the Pitt Panthers. Yeah. But anyways, that's what I'm rolling with in this game. I think it's going to be really interesting. Something that strikes me about this game, I'll say something that strikes me. My favorite memory of this game, a few years ago, you had West Virginia. They were taking on Pittsburgh, and this was in Pittsburgh. West Virginia fans, they like to repeat or chant a certain term that I will not say live on air. Come to me afterwards, and I will tell you, but I'm not going to say it. For one, Ashley is in the kitchen and she's staring a hole through my soul. And I cannot say that because I do not want to get beat with a belt. My dad is also in there and he is sharpening his knife as we speak. So, no, I'm not going to do that. But guys, I think that's going to be a great game. JT Daniels a few years ago, he threw a pass to the West Virginia wide receiver, goes through his hands. Pittsburgh returns it. They're tied at this point. They return it for the touchdown, and Pittsburgh goes on to win that game by a singular touchdown. I thought it was one of the best games I've ever seen. It was one of the most exciting games I've ever seen. The Backyard Brawl is one of the best rivalries I've ever seen. And I'm not mentioning that lightly. I'm not putting it up there with the Iron Bowl. I'm not putting it up there with the game. I'm not putting it up there with the Red River rivalry. What I am telling you, though, is that it is one of the better one of the better rivalries in college football. And that's just that, guys. That is just that. That's my opinion, of course. My opinions are my own. So take what you want to, guys, but that's just how I feel about it. And I think Pittsburgh is going to make a strong case for the top 25, the AP top 25, if I will mind me. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think that West Virginia is quite there. I think Coach Neil Brown has a little bit of a way to go. He will get there eventually, but I don't think that this year is that year. Now, as for Pittsburgh, I think it's your year. I think it's your year to finally do something in the ACC. If you're going to do it, go and do it. I think you can do it. I think you have the athletes to do it. You have the offense to do it. You finally have the quarterback to do it in Eli Holstein. He had a rough start. He had a rough go this past week in the first half against Cincinnati. Turned it around and played absolutely phenomenal, throwing for over 300 yards and a couple touchdowns in there as well. Don't even mind the few touchdowns, okay? Don't even mind the few touchdowns. Just look at his completion percent. Well, his completion percentage was not great. Look at his yardage, okay? Then you can look at the touchdowns. His decision-making is getting better. This guy's going to be an absolute unit by the end of the season, and I think he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC. Just saying. Take with that what you will. But, guys, I talked a little bit about it earlier, and I talked about field logos. Now, field logos, when it all comes down to it, I want to mention Chick-fil-A right quick because their logo is one of the most important to us, okay? They're paying us to sponsor their beautiful brand, and we're going to continue to do that. They're awesome food. They're awesome catering business. They're awesome service as well. So we can't step away from that. But, guys, week in and week out, whether it's the weekend, whether it's a Monday night, you don't want to cook, or a Wednesday night, Sunday night, Saturday night, whatever, you don't want to cook. Maybe you have some friends over and you want to cater your event or you want to cater your little party or get together. It doesn't even have to be a party. Whatever it is, you can call Chick-fil-A in Pell City or use their app and get things going. And, hey, everybody, if you're looking for an easy way to get this food delivered to you, well, let Chick-fil-A in Pell City cater your next gathering. Choose from a variety of trays, including Chick-fil-A nuggets, mac and cheese, chocolate chunk cookies, and even chocolate fudge brownies. Perfect for a get-together of any size. You can place an order through the Chick-fil-A app, online, or by calling ahead and pick it up at the Chick-fil-A in Pell City, or get it delivered directly to your door. Enjoy more of the game with your friends when you take your cooking off your plate. Availability and order requirements may vary. You can check the restaurant for details. You can check that restaurant, the Chick-fil-A in Pell City, for more details because they have got you covered with whatever it is. Now, guys, we discussed field logos. This is something I really want to talk about because I think it's very, very interesting for the game of college football, not only for college football, but for college sports in general. This is crazy, guys. This is next level advertisement. Some of these college football teams are having legit companies put their logo on their field. We talked a little bit about Tennessee a few weeks ago and their $20 million, I believe it was $20 million. But their multi-million-dollar deal with Pilot. Pilot's going to eventually put their logo on their field, on Tennessee's field, and I think that's interesting. Now we have another team in the SEC that's doing it as well. We have the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now these two companies I'm going to name very Arkansas related. Okay, first up we have Tyson Foods. Now Tyson Foods, obviously a lot of you know Tyson Chicken and those guys over there. And another brand they are sponsoring on their field, they're putting the logo on their field, is Walmart. Now we all know that Arkansas is not necessarily known for their memorabilia, if we can call it that. There's not much there. It is Arkansas, the town of nothing, or the state of nothing. And one of the things that I think of when I think of Arkansas, every single time I was driving through Arkansas, coming back from Oklahoma this past summer, and I was thinking, man, there's absolutely nothing here. Well, guess what? Arkansas is the home of Walmart. And that is interesting to me. Why is that interesting to me? Well, Arkansas has just made Walmart the logo on their field. And so Walmart has officially partnered with the Arkansas University and the football team, and they have their logo on their field. So I think that's interesting. And we mentioned a little bit earlier, Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, they did this a few weeks back with Pilot. Mentioned them already. I think that is very interesting. Are we going to see jersey logos come together soon? I think it is a very real possibility. I'm pretty sure we've already seen it with some college football teams. So I think it's interesting, and it's seriously changing the game for college football. What is this going to do for NIL money? What is this going to do for revenue for the college, revenue for the athletics facility, or the athletics department, excuse me? What exactly is this going to do for those entities? I think that this is very interesting. I think that this is going to carry on, and it's going to continue to be a problem in college sports. I never would have thought we would see logos on fields of college football fields anyways, or logos on jerseys. I would not have expected that. We see it a lot with the Major League Baseball. I believe even some with the NBA and the NFL as well. But I think for the most part, the NFL is most notorious for it. Or excuse me, the MLB is most notorious for it. But I think it's very interesting that we are seeing it in college sports. I do not agree with it at all. I don't like it. Obviously, it's helping these colleges out, but at what cost? What exactly is this going? Where exactly, in what direction is this going? Because I think it could be dangerous for college athletics. Moving on. Guys, I talked a little bit about it earlier. The college football playoff and these group of 5 teams. How exactly is this going to fare out? Well, I have my Power 12, and I'm not going to read off the whole Power 12 to you. I have about 6 or 7 teams that I've listed as the top 6 or 7, and I really want to get y'all's opinion on this. Not only your opinion, of course, give me your feedback. Of course, I'm always going to want that. But how exactly and where exactly are these going to teams end up by the end of the year? Because I think that it's going to be a little bit more difficult and a little bit more complex coming within the next few weeks. We have number 1 in the HCS Media Power 12, the Georgia Bulldogs. I think Georgia has proven they're the number 1 team in the country. And right behind them is the number 2 team, the Texas Longhorns, and they proved that this past weekend against the Michigan Wolverines. Now, the Michigan Wolverines are obviously not what they were last year. That's obvious. We know that, and we hate it for them. Obviously, you lose Jim Harbaugh, you lose J.J. McCarthy, and J.J. McCarthy, I think, was a key piece of that offense, but it wasn't necessarily because of his on-the-field play. I think it was his leadership, his athleticism, and his ability to lead the team. So I don't necessarily think he was their biggest loss. No, I think guys like Blake Corum would be their biggest loss. You have Roman Wilson also. So, and then you have Mikey Sanger still on the defensive side of the football that you lose. It's difficult to sit here and break down and say, hey, this guy was the most important guy or the most important facet to this team last year. I'm not going to do that. But what they lost doesn't compare to what they have now, because it's just not – they just don't have the guys they had last year. And that's okay. It's college football. You're going to lose guys, and you're going to have to rebuild, or I say rebuild. You're going to have to restart from where you were, okay? You're not going to have those same great players that you had the year before, although you have guys like Colston Loveland, who is a senior and junior, I believe, and Alex Orji, who's not necessarily new to Michigan football. Davis Warren, guess what? He's not new. He's been there for a few years. This guy battled leukemia, beat leukemia. Shout out to him. Extremely awesome for him. You have guys like Donovan Edwards, who's a fantastic running back, one of the best running backs in college football, but one of the better running backs in college football. I'll mention here in a little bit. And he does not play in a Power 4, Power 5 conference, however you want to say it. So I think it's very interesting what Michigan lost. And I hate it. You hate to see it, but you got to move on. And I think you will. This Michigan team will be fine in the future. But for right now and this year, I don't necessarily see you as a top contender. And that's why I didn't have you in my HCS Media preseason college football playoff prediction, because I think you lost a little bit too much talent. And, of course, you lose a head coach along with that. I don't think it's going well. But for now, we're going to visit the hydration station, and I'm going to be back to you in 2 seconds. Okay, we're back. Now, that is not water. That is a special concoction that I've made called Dr. Pepper. And, guys, I think that this is interesting because we talked a little bit about it earlier, and I want to really touch on it a little bit here in just a little bit. But with the interesting matchups coming this weekend, we also have big-time players. So big-time players mean big-time plays week in and week out. Ashton Jeanty, running back for Boise State, has been playing absolutely out of his mind this year. He has 9 touchdowns on the year. And we are how many games into the season? That would be 2. We are 2 games into the season, and Ashton Jeanty is absolutely playing his rear off. He has 9 touchdowns, over 400 yards, close to 500 yards, by the way. He has 45 carries on the year and 459 rush yards. Oh, by the way, that is a brisk and an easy 10.2 yards per carry. And that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. He's been playing out of his mind this year. I'm really excited to see what this Boise State team can do, because I really think that they are one of the better group of 5 teams in the country, and they have a chance to make the college football playoffs, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not. So I'm excited to see where that goes. Now, the question is, where exactly does that go? We can see this. We can see multiple outcomes, but I see this Boise State team as a 1 to 2 loss team at the end of the year and knocking on the door of a college football playoff. I really, really do. What's going to happen with Texas State? What's going to happen with Tulane? What's going to happen with guys like Liberty? It's all there. Northern Illinois had a big win over Notre Dame. They absolutely messed the bed. Notre Dame did anyways. What's going to happen there? I think it's interesting, and I cannot wait to see how their seasons unfold. Now it's just a waiting game, okay? If these guys are going to keep it up throughout the rest of the year, fantastic. But keep it up. Do not give up, and finish the year strong. We're on week 2. I'm really looking forward to see how these smaller teams do the rest of the year. Now, the one thing they don't need to do is let the wheels fall off, okay? If you visit J&K Tire in Still, Alabama, they're not going to let that happen, okay? J&K Tire, they can fix your tires, brakes, alignments, shocks, struts, oil changes, and just minor auto repairs. They can fix all those type of things. In Still, Alabama is where you can find J&K Tire, and you can call them at 256-570-0777. That's 256-570-0777. Remember, they'll get you going, and they'll keep these teams' tires from falling off. They will, okay? Northern Illinois, don't let the wheels fall off, okay? Now you've got some tread on your tires. Do not let that affect how you finish the rest of the season. Call Kirk and the guys. They'll get you good to go, and that's that. They will. Guys, the one thing about these teams is that they don't have the depth that some of these bigger teams have. And that's going to be their arrow in their elbow at the end of the year, their arrow in their knee, if you will. Unfortunately, that's how it is. And NIL has a lot to do with that. And really, these big conferences joining together, that has a lot to do with that now. So I think that the gap between some of these group of 5 teams and the Power 5 teams or Power 4 teams are massive. Now, how exactly can they play into that? Now, a lot of it's going to have to do with how their game plan is set up, how these guys finish out the rest of the year, but we will see sooner than later. Another guy that I wanted to highlight was Kyle Manangani, from Rutgers. Now, running back from Rutgers has played phenomenal this year, and I think he's a guy that you should be paying attention to. Over 46 carries for 360 yards. And guess what? He also has 4 touchdowns on the year for Rutgers. Now, he is averaging just over 8 yards per carry. Not as significant and not as astounding as Ashton Jeanty is playing. But this guy for Rutgers, he's playing out of his mind right now. And let me just tell you guys, they go to Blacksburg in Virginia in a few weeks, I think that they could really knock off this Virginia Tech team. And this is a Virginia Tech team that I thought was going to be really, really nice toward the beginning of the year. Now, obviously, you have that week 1 loss to Vanderbilt, but there's still room for improvement. So if you're Virginia Tech, guess what? The season is still young. Get your crap in gear. If you're Rutgers, go in there and knock a team off that's struggling right now. Obviously, I think you've got to get Kyron Drones running. I think you've got to get your running back going. Your defense is not looking bad. Guess what? Your offense is stalling out. Kyron Drones has got to be the key piece of this offense, and he has got to get things rolling, and he's got to get them rolling fast. West Virginia and Pittsburgh, we talked about these guys a little bit earlier. I think Pittsburgh's a really good football team. I think they knock off West Virginia this weekend. West Virginia's a favorite. And they're going into Pittsburgh's backyard. Now, why are they a favorite? Obviously, they're a favorite for a reason. People like these guys. Vegas bettors like these guys. All the money is going on West Virginia to cover. I don't think so. Is that going to happen? No. Everybody's not putting their money on West Virginia. What I think is happening is people are going to see this line, and they're going to immediately put their money on Pittsburgh, because I think Eli Holstein and this offense are really going to get things rolling this year. And, guys, I'm just going to tell you, this Desmond Reed guy at running back, you should be paying attention to him. He's very, very solid for this Pittsburgh team, and you should really look out for him. Ole Miss at Wake Forest, another one of these SEC and ACC matchups, the other one I'll mention here in just a minute. But Ole Miss goes into Wake Forest this weekend. I think they win by double digits, and I think they cover the spread. They're a 22.5-point favorite. I think they beat Wake Forest by 28-30. Okay, I don't think this is going to be a close game at all. I think it'll be a fun matchup, but do I think it'll be close? No, I'm not rolling with Wake Forest for the. I'm not rolling with Wake Forest for the upset, and it's unfortunate. I do have to say it. Caleb Ramsey chimes in, says Ole Miss all the way by a long shot. Caleb Ramsey, man, I do have to agree with you there. I don't necessarily think that the guys in Wake Forest are going to be able to get the job done. Now, can they? No, they won't. I'm not even going to entertain it, because they won't. Ole Miss will go in and they will beat the brakes off of Wake Forest. I hate to say it. I know that's how it is these days, but unfortunately, that is just how it is, okay? Now, guys, I know the weather's rough tonight. Bear with us, as there's a little bit of connection issues, so bear with us. We do apologize, and we're going to make things right, okay? We're going to continue to go throughout our show and make things good, okay? West Virginia and Pitt, we talked about that one. We picked Pittsburgh. We picked Ole Miss when it came to the Wake Forest game. Now we have Boston College at Missouri. Missouri is a 16.5-point favorite. I think that Missouri covers. Missouri is a team that's interesting to me because their offense is going to be really, really, really nice this year. I need to see a little bit more from their defense. Defensively, are they going to be good this year? We will see. There's a little bit more that I feel like I have to see before I can jump to any conclusions. Now, they played great this year. Don't get me wrong. And Boston College jumping into the top 25 really helps their strength of schedule. Now, how does Boston College finish the year? Because that's eventually going to help them. That's eventually going to help Missouri, okay? Because I think Missouri wins this game, and I think they beat them pretty roughly. And I think that Boston College, their ranking and how they are sitting right now, first of all, their win last week against Florida State was massive. Congrats to Boston College. If you're Florida State, I really don't know what you're doing, but to each their own, okay? Whatever you say, go with it. But as for Florida State, you're done. Boston College, fantastic win there. I would love to see what the rest of the season holds for you. And unfortunately, I think you take a loss on Saturday evening. But then again, it's not the end of the season. This is week 3. Okay, let's get things rolling. Everything's going to be all right. Now, another matchup I'm looking forward to is Tulane at Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma is a 13.5-point favorite. Do they cover the spread this weekend? Oklahoma's offense, I'm a little bit worried. That offensive line does not look good. I'm a little bit worried. I think Tulane is going to cover the 13.5-point spread this weekend. Do I think they win the game? No. I think that Oklahoma is eventually going to win this game. But do not be shocked, ladies and gentlemen, if Tulane makes this a game late. I think they cover, but I don't think they win the game. But like I said, I would not be surprised if they ended up making this a really close game. Then we have Notre Dame at Purdue, another non-conference, out-of-conference SEC game. well, I say SEC matchup. It's not an SEC matchup. It's an out-of-conference game. You have Notre Dame, who's the 18th ranked team in the country right now. Should they be ranked number 18 in the country? I don't necessarily know, considering you lost to a feisty NIU team last week. I'm not going to say too much more about that game because I'm really disappointed in Notre Dame themselves. Anyways, I think that this is going to be a nice game again. If you're Notre Dame, you're not traveling far. It's not far from South Bend to Purdue. It's just not. I think that Purdue is going to not cover the spread. I think that Notre Dame pulls away late, but this is a feisty Purdue group. Don't be surprised when things head south for Notre Dame. South Bend. You get that. But no, don't be surprised when things head south, okay? This is not a Notre Dame team that is just absolutely dominant. We saw that last week. You lose on the last-second field goal to NIU. It just does not happen. It's not going to be your year, Notre Dame. But what you can do is you can bounce back, and your schedule for the rest of the year, by the way, is not rough. So I don't think you're great this year, Notre Dame, but go out there, get you a good win, get back on track, and you can be all right, okay? Now, something that I wanted to talk about and discuss, and I did not want to digress away from, was the Chick-fil-A app. It's very important, and our dog is up on the counter right now trying to eat our supper. And Ashley's beating the dog. No. But yeah, let's talk about the Chick-fil-A app for a second because I think it's extremely important. And Brian Phillips says NIU wasn't rough either. I agree, Brian. And something that I really thought was interesting was how they held themselves in South Bend. Now, that's not an easy stadium to play in at all. I really thought that Notre Dame was going to run away with that game. I didn't think that it would be close. Well, NIU showed us wrong, and that's just what they did. I was really happy for them. Can they do it the rest of the season? And Brian, do you think they make a case for the college football playoff at the end of the year if the group of five starts to be considered? Brian, let me know if you would like to let me know out there and you're watching this. Go ahead, comment your thoughts down below. But hey, everybody, if you're making a decision about what to eat, especially when you're on the go, if you're driving, you're thinking, hey, you know what? Do I want to stop here? Do I want to stop there? Well, think no further. Chick-fil-A in Pell City helps you save time with easy-to-order options on the Chick-fil-A app. Don't order while driving, folks. That's illegal. Plus, with every qualifying purchase, you'll receive points toward rewards. The Chick-fil-A food we always enjoy is just a tap away. Download the Chick-fil-A app and order your favorites today. In participating areas of the state of Alabama, open your Chick-fil-A app and when Auburn or Alabama scores a touchdown from the red zone at home, and you will receive a free treat from our Chick-fil-A Iron Bowl giveaway. Now, that's just that, guys. Chick-fil-A, go download the app. Don't be wasting your money when you're spending food, okay? You could easily be gaining points from this, gaining points to an eventual reward, okay? Let that reward come to fruition. Let us talk about it. Let us enjoy it. And let us talk about some Chick-fil-A food over some fantastic football this weekend. Brian Phillips says NIU always has a decent program, beat Bama in early 2000s. Then he also says, no, Notre Dame doesn't make the playoffs, in my opinion. Brian, Brian, I meant NIU. I'm sorry. That's one thing that I wanted to point out was a few years ago. I remember they had a really nice quarterback. I forget the name of him, but this Northern Illinois team was really, really good. They were really good. They ended up having a really great season, and I believe they made a New Year's Six bowl. I could be completely wrong on that. Nielsen Holt says, what in the world symbol did he just comment? Go Chick-fil-A. Nielsen, we're going to roll with it. I don't know what that was, but yeah, we're going to roll with it. Nielsen, thank you for joining. Everybody, thank you for joining tonight. This is a Hayden Coker Show presented to you by Chick-fil-A, and we've got a little bit more to talk about before we go off the air. And remember, guys, Texas State is hosting the Arizona State. Thank you, Damian Mitchell. Jordan Lynch. Jordan Lynch was who I was referring to. I could not remember his name for nothing. I just remember him being a freaking phenomenal quarterback in college at NIU. Damian Mitchell, shout out to you. Thank you for joining, brother. Highly appreciate it. Thank you for letting me know that little nugget there. I highly appreciate it. But Jordan Lynch, phenomenal quarterback for NIU back in the early 2010s, I believe it was. And that was just that. That was one of the key guys. And that's one of the guys I always remember. Of course, I couldn't remember his name, but that's one of the guys I always think of whenever I think of Northern Illinois and the Huskies. But now, next, guys. Now, we have a few SEC games this weekend, and one that I think is really being not necessarily overlooked, but I think has too many eyes on the game. Now, I get it's college football. We're going to want those eyes on the game. This LSU team is traveling to South Carolina. I think that this has a recipe for disaster for South Carolina. Now, the weather's going to be bad. I think it's going to be really rainy. Does that roll in South Carolina's favor? Absolutely, it does. Now, if this turns into a running game, if this turns into a ground and pound game for LSU, could you be in some trouble? Yeah, because you lose John Emery over the weekend or over the past 2 weeks. You lose him due to a torn ACL. It's unfortunate for him because he tore his ACL last year as well. I believe this is the ACL in his opposite knee. Regardless, he's out for the year. You hate to see it because I thought that this was going to be John Emery's year. You know, he can finally stand out and show out for this LSU roster and show what he's made of. And then for it to just all crumble down to pieces like that, it just kind of sucks. And I hate it for the guy. Great athlete, phenomenal running back. But unfortunately, that is just how football goes. That's how life goes sometimes. And it's unfortunate, but it happens. I think that this game could be good. Do I think it will be good? To an extent, I think it's good early. But I do not think that this is going to be a great game in general. I say that, and I think that if it turns into a ground and pound game, I think that that's South Carolina's best bet. But unfortunately for them, I don't necessarily think that they will get things rolling. But like I said, it'll be their best bet if this is a rainy game, if South Carolina can really get things going on the ground. I think that's their best bet. But I unfortunately do not think it happens. Brian Phillips said he's pulling for Shane Beamer. He deserves a big win. I agree. I think Shane Beamer deserves a big win. And I wish it would happen. He says Brian Phillips says he thinks this is the best matchup in the SEC this weekend. And I really don't see and I hate to say this, but I really don't see it being a close game. I think that LSU is going to eventually run away from this game, and I think that they kind of tone that crowd down. Now, I get it. It has a recipe. This is a massive recipe and a big, big, big weekend for South Carolina. You're going to have a lot of eyes on this game. It's going to be on ESPN and ABC, I believe, at 11 a.m., I do believe was what I saw. But something that stands out is there's a lot of eyes on this game because college game day is being there. Now, when I talk about that, it makes me rethink things. But then on the other hand, I think of what LSU is capable of this year, and I do not think that South Carolina hangs with them. Now, obviously, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I think that LSU really comes into this game, and Garrett Nussmeier, he starts slinging that thing around the yard in South Carolina, and I think LSU takes over Columbia this year. I really do. So I'm going with LSU, and I think they cover the 7-point spread. It was 7.5 at one point, but now I think it has officially gone down. Nielsen Holt comments says, what is your prediction for Bama's record this year? Now, I think that Alabama is a hot topic of discussion this year. They have a big game this weekend for them. You're going to Camp Randall. You're going to play a mean Wisconsin team, but I don't think they have things quite figured out yet. So I think that Alabama wins this game. Now, does Wisconsin keep this game close early? I believe they do. It's going to be for the first half. For the first half or 2.5 quarters, I think that this is Wisconsin's game. Not Wisconsin's game, but I think that it's Wisconsin's game to really hone in on things and kind of make things difficult for Alabama. I think the crowd's going to play a little bit into it. And the way that Alabama struggled within their first few games, I think is going to be key. Do they use those games for motivation? Do they come into this game? Do they think, hey, you know what? We haven't played really, really great in these past few games. I think it's time to step it up a notch. Well, I don't think that it. I just do not see Alabama struggling this next weekend or late, anyways. Nielsen Holt says they struggled. Absolutely, they struggled the past few weeks, but I don't see Wisconsin being able to do anything of significance this weekend. And I think Alabama eventually runs away with the game. I think that they end up winning the game, and the second half will be what the second half will be what really, really determines the game for Alabama. Wisconsin will keep it close early. Their defense will keep keep Alabama on their toes. But overall, I don't think that they will. I just don't see Alabama winning, or excuse me. I don't see Alabama losing this game. Brian Phillips chimes in, says, I don't see the discipline in Alabama this year. And that's another thing about Alabama is I think that there's a lack of discipline, but I also think that some of these players are like, hey, Nick Saban's gone. This is a little bit different of a dynamic this year. They have music in practice. Practices are a little bit different. Game days are a little bit different. There's just a different atmosphere in Tuscaloosa, and I think that has a lot to do with it this year. But they're going to have to change that. They're going to have to change that, and that's up to them. And this weekend, if they want to change that, if they want to change the outlook on their team or change the way that people are looking at this program, not necessarily program, but if they want to change the look of this team this year, they have to go in and they have to execute this weekend. Because if not, you're going to have questions around, hey, this is not the top five team that we necessarily thought. So I think that Alabama wins this weekend, and I think they eventually run away with it. But the rest of the season is up in air. I think you lose probably 2 games this year. Those are going to be to Georgia and I believe Oklahoma in Oklahoma's backyard. Those are the 2 games I think you lose. But that's with a lot of progress. Right now, obviously it's going into week 3. It's early, but I think that there is a lot of progress to be made, and Alabama has to make some of those adjustments. So that's just that. But yeah, I think Alabama wins this weekend. They win by a pretty decent amount. I do think they cover the spread there. But now, guys, I want to transition. My focus from what happened or what is happening this weekend, and I want to retwist and refocus on the best performances of last weekend. First off, I want to start out with NIU. Northern Illinois, they played a great game last weekend against Notre Dame. We talked about that a little bit earlier. This is one of my fantastic performances of the week. We're going to start giving out fantastic performance awards. They're going to go to Northern Illinois, California, and Nebraska. Nebraska played a great game against Colorado, and I don't think that Colorado is going to be good at all this year. I think they lose this coming weekend to Colorado State, and there's going to be a few games they win this year. Do they get to 4-8? I don't necessarily know if they do. They have a few games this year that are really going to make me question that. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm excited to see if they either make it or if they don't make it. I think Deion Sanders has a lot of work to do out in Boulder. Does he get it done? That will be the main question. Now, our poor performances of the week. There's a few teams, and one of them is in the SEC, and one of these teams is independent. Now, the other team that's independent is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We saw that coming, or not saw that coming, but we saw it coming to be placed in that category for poor performance. The other team is the Auburn Tigers. Now, Damian Mitchell, if you're still in the chat, I would love to hear your take on Auburn and what Peyton Thorne is. What he showcased this past weekend. A lot of people would say it was horrible. It was trash. And there was even people Venmoing Peyton Thorne over the past weekend and after the weekend was over, asking him for money because of their bets that they lost. Nelson Holt chimes in on the Colorado situation, says Shedeur Sanders walked off the field before the game was even over. I thought that was wild. He walked off the field 2 minutes prior to the game being over. One, it shows a lot about his character. He's very arrogant. He's very egotistical, and I really don't like that. And there's a guy over in Ragland, Alabama, at the moment who has officially caught an interception from Peyton Thorne. And Brian Phillips, shout out to you. You're one of the 15,000 people who has caught has caught an interception from Peyton Thorne. So I'm going to give you a shout out there. Going to give you a big pat on the back. But and by the way, I know you had surgery on your ACL. I hope everything is well with your knee. I don't know when that was, but I know it was with over the course of the past year or so. So hope that everything's going well on that end for you, Mr. Brian. But yeah, guys, those are my fantastic performances. Those are my piss poor performances, as some of you would say. Brian Phillips says he's very arrogant. I completely agree. I do not see any situation where this year turns out positive for the Colorado Buffaloes. I just don't. Obviously, we'll see what happens later on, but I do not see this. I just don't see it turning out positive for Colorado. Guys, I want to stop and go ahead and say thank you for listening. And of course, Brian, of course. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Nilson. Thank you, Damian Mitchell, and everybody who's chimed in on the live chat so far. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week, the same time, 6 o'clock. I believe we'll be back at 6 o'clock next Thursday, or maybe we'll see. We're going to have to see what time the Moody game is next Thursday. And should have stayed at Jacksonville. You're not wrong, Nilson. You're not wrong. But yeah, we'll see what happens. As for now, show scheduled same time next Thursday night, and I will see you there. And let's go the Hayden Coker Show, says Brian Phillips. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you guys again back next week. And for now, have a good one. God bless and take care. And watch some amazing college football this weekend. As for me, I will be hanging out with the phenomenal Alana Yates, who is making a trip down here from Oklahoma, and that is Stillwater this weekend. Safe flights to you. We love you. I love you. Safe flights. Hope everybody has a fantastic weekend, and goodbye.